This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, it's a day that all of us are going to pretty much remember for the rest of our lives.
I think
as
so.
Our neighbors to the south, excluding, of course, those of you that tune in from the United States. It's you we're talking about. We're talking about you today as you go to the polls, unless you're one of the, 80 million that voted, cast an advance ballot. Johnny, incredible turnout at the advance polls.
Yeah, just...
Today is a big day, the Tuesday that'll define the next 4 years in the White House and around the world. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about it today.
How are you feeling?
I just feel a little bit weird. I think people describe it as like election anxiety, and I think that a lot of folks feel this way. Probably people that are voting for both candidates feel this way because the folks have their flags planted so deep that the Trump supporters feel that if Kamala gets in, they've been convinced that there's going to be all kinds of wild things like big burly men in little girls' change rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That they think that's what Kamala wants. She's going to come take their guns, and so they're feeling anxiety today. And then I think that those that would support a Harris presidency and probably the rest of the free world is a little bit concerned that the guy that prompted the January 6th attack on the Capitol and is one of the most, I think probably the biggest threat to democracy on planet Earth, my personal opinion, might get 4 more years in the White House. And that's a very real possibility.
It is.
And so tomorrow's episode, the next episode that we do here will be analysis from both here in Canada and stateside. And we've got a great roster lined up. But today we sit and wait to see what happens. And obviously it's going to come down probably to tens of thousands of votes in 3 to 5 states.
It's going to be very close if you're looking at the swing states right now. And again, early polling data, it's always like a margin of error, like 3 or 4 points, which can swing a state one way or the other way, so it doesn't really matter. But it shows about 4, there's 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them, 4 of them going for Trump right now, 3 of them for Harris, but you never know what's going to happen. We're seeing like a lot of people coming out in places like Iowa yesterday who they don't really early vote, and just a ton of them, lineups around the block. I'll show some viz later when we're talking to Quick. But I think this is an historic election in the fact that we really don't know what's going to happen. We never really know. But even CNN, who, usually projects for the left, projects for a Democrat, and they put up their stats and their maps, they don't even know. I mean, it could be that a few states go Trump's way and it's a landslide. It could be the same with Harris. We could see, something we've never seen before. Or it could come down to literally a few electoral votes. We're talking like the map I see that is the closest to what people think is going to happen is 3 electoral votes, which if that happens, we all know the uproar, Ryan, that's going to happen if it sways for Harris. We're talking about voting and election interference. And if it sways that way for Trump, we're going to talk about recounts. So I don't see what I'm going to do is go to bed early tonight because I don't see a winner being nailed down definitely until tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and who knows by the time we're talking, we've had whatever. We don't need to get in the weeds here, but some folks we've some elected officials that we've asked for comment the day after the American election, they're not doing it. No, number one, they're like, we don't even know if the results are going to be in, and second of all, we got to get our beans in a row first. And so obviously there's stories happening closer to home as well. Dwayne wonders if we're going to talk about the quote suspect leadership review result for Danielle Smith. We talked about it yesterday at length.
All day.
You can see it in our archives. You can find it on our shorts and on our social media posts. I got some sort of unexpected clapback, and I can talk about that later. Thought it was kind of a simple and fun question to put out there. Who has more momentum right now, Danielle Smith or Naheed Nenshi? And some people were like really triggered by a pretty plain question. So maybe we'll have some fun with that later. We're going to check in on my unscientific, unofficial Twitter poll. I've asked my fellow Canadians who they'd be voting for today if they had a vote. Now, of course, someone will say, well, hang on a second. How do you know Americans aren't voting on your unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll? We don't. We have no idea. It could be children voting on our poll. It's why it's unscientific, but it's just having a little bit of fun. And as you alluded to, one of the biggest YouTube stars, one of the most prominent new wave political commentators in Canada, and by that I mean he's not on the CBC and he's not on cable news. He's created his own presence on YouTube and millions of people every single month check out what QuickDickMcDick has to say from behind the wheel of his big rig or his combine or turning wrenches in his Quonset, whatever it is. QDM, as they call him, has hot takes on politics. I want to ask him what he's thinking about the election today, what he makes of the Saskatchewan election result, where Scott Moe won, but not really, but won nonetheless, losing some seats, still premier. It's got people asking about the future of his party. I want to hear about Harvest. And then QuickDick has released on his YouTube channel an absolute heater today, basically calling for the death penalty, to cut to the chase. But we'll get him to argue his point. I know that's always something where Canadians kind of divided on this one. I think the majority of Canadians do not support the death penalty, so-called capital punishment.
I would tend to
most
think
Canadians oppose it, but I think also it feels like the majority of Canadians would acknowledge that our judicial system is an absolute mess with dangerous offenders. I mean, not technically, but repeat offenders that are at high risk of reoffending are released into the public with, a press release from well-meaning police officers. And I think a lot of Canadians are going, what's actually the proper way to do this? So we'll dig in. We'll have that tough conversation today. We'll look to what our Real Talkers have to say in our live chat on YouTube. And of course, you can always shoot us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. This episode of the show is presented by Business Career College, and they're pretty much putting out the call to senior finance professionals and financial advisors. Everybody was talking about Bitcoin the last couple of weeks just because it was surging. But, bigger term, longer term, the next generation of investors, 3/4 of them say that they're interested in learning more about decentralized finance, like the blockchain, NFTs, the whole 9 yards. Whether or not you support it, whether or not you think it's a good or bad idea, and obviously you'll be advising your clients, you want to know what you're talking about. And staying knowledgeable about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, is essential. So you're going to want to check out their new designation, the CDAA. That's the Certified Digital Asset Advisor. The CDAA designation at businesscareercollege.com will make sure that you're up to speed and pave the way for the next stage of your career. Promo code Ryan20, by the way, all one word, knocks 20% off the investment at businesscareercollege.com. That's Ryan20 to save 20% off.
Yeah, Travis asking in the chat, because many people know I'm a dually, if I vote, and or if I can vote. As a dual citizen, I can vote, but I choose not to. If I worked down in the States even part-time and paid some taxes and some of my money was down there and I therefore thought I had a say, I would do it, but I don't want to meddle in things that have nothing to do with me financially.
Hang on a second. You and I have not spoken about this before. So you actually could vote?
I could vote, yeah, but I mean, we talked about this yesterday because we were talking about taxes in the U.S. and you asked whether I had to pay them. So if you don't live in the U.S. for less than 184 days or something a year, you don't have to pay taxes there. Or if you don't make a certain X amount of money, and I don't. I go down there and I see family and that's it. But I mean, if my money was tied up in the system somehow and I felt like my dollars were going to places and I wanted to project those dollars in a certain direction, then I would, but because none of my money's down there, I don't feel that it's my place. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are going to say, Johnny, you could do your part in the state of Florida. You could do your part to,
but I think we all know Florida's going red.
Well, then again, people don't know how you'd vote. Maybe you'd vote to make America great again. Who knows?
Hey, when Gore and Bush went up against each other, Florida was the decider. So you never know.
Yeah, what was that? The hanging Chad? Was that the hanging Chad?
Yeah,
election?
That was the election that went on forever. They didn't call that till like the 12th. I hope that does not happen today, but I do see it going long. I see us waking up tomorrow and things are still not clear until 8 or 10 a.m.
Wise Kyle says you've just admitted to not filing taxes in the States, and you've said it on a live
Well, I don't
show.
have to because I don't
the
work
IRS
there.
is going to whack you.
No, they do send me an email every year saying,
oh, is that right?
Should you be filing taxes in the States? And I say no, I didn't work at all.
Okay. Well, speaking of taxes, speaking of tariffs, why don't we load this up? This feels like
Sure.
a good segue to bring in our friend QuickDickMcDick. Donald Trump, if elected president today, very real possibility, has suggested, no, he hasn't suggested, he's promised.
Wait, are we doing
that,
the QuickDick?
No. I want to
Let's
throw
do
to the
Trump?
tariffs.
Okay.
Trump on tariffs, yeah. And Trump's, basically spelling out his part of his economic plan to get America's economy where he thinks it needs to be. And a big part of that is, punitive measures on countries like Canada. Here's the Donald.
To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, and is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than anything. It's the most beautiful word.
Okay. So this is not good news.
No, it's not.
For Canadian industry. This is not good for Canadians. Everybody knows Dick McDick. He's one of the biggest YouTube stars that our country has produced. And, of course, he also is a real-life farmer. He takes us behind the scenes all the time. How you doing, pal? It's nice to see your face.
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, good to see you guys too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, how are you feeling today? Big day. Americans electing their next president, but there's no country on planet Earth that people outside that country watch more than the United States.
It's true, man. You know, like we have we have so many people that pay very close attention to U.S. politics here in Canada. I mean, like even every now and then I'll do a post on X somewhere, you know, about when we just had the Saskatchewan election. I got a whole bunch of people down in my comment section be like, make sure to vote Trump. I'm like, dude, I'm in Saskatchewan. I'm a Canadian citizen. We're not talking about the U.S. politics right now. But it's funny you played that clip there. I was trying to watch that the podcast there with Trump and Rogan. And I mean, you know, I watch everything on like 1.5 speed because I only got so much time. And when that clip rolled across, like, I was like, oh boy. Yeah, that's, I mean, essentially Trump's version of protectionism for the states is, I mean, something that I kind of believe in even here in Canada kind of thing. But when you're one of the biggest trading partners with the U.S. and USMCA, I believe, is up for renewal in 2026, and you watch a guy that could be president of the U.S. say that, you're like, yeah, especially as a guy that's involved in heavily exporting most of the products that we grow here in Canada, that's a pretty scary thing to see somebody say, right?
Do you take us back to like 2016 to 2020? Did the Trump presidency have a direct economic impact on your operation?
So, like, full disclosure, I was back fully on the farm in 2019 is when I started buying back into it. But I mean, even talking to different guys, I feel like we really weren't at the table when they did the first negotiation of USMC. And I think that's kind of a personal vendetta between, you know, Trudeau and Trump a little bit. And I honestly think that's like they like barking at each other, right? Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see what's going to happen to politics here in Canada if we do see a Trump government form down in the States. But Trump does what's good for the U.S., right? And a lot of times that's going to affect us here. And I think you'll see it. I think you'll see it primarily in the beef industry coming here as well. We're seeing a shortage of herds in a lot of different places and guys trying to rebuild herds. And we're seeing a lot of protectionism come at us from different activist groups down in the States, making sure that it's U.S. beef that's staying in the U.S. And let's be honest. I mean, they're one of our biggest customers, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, across industry. And I know that there's, you know, I've got a good buddy that works in steel, and this would be really bad news for them. You know, pals that work obviously in forestry and lumber, like in associated industries there, it's like these tariffs, like it can't be overstated how much of a big deal it is, right?
Absolutely. And even in our auto industry,
right.
You know, we're big players in trying to get some EVs on the market and whatnot and trying to make things affordable. And we see some huge subsidies going out to a lot of vehicle manufacturers out east. And all of a sudden, if one of your bigger customers is going to put a 100 or 200% tariff on something that's coming across the border, like he was talking about, if you guys caught what he was going to do if I think there was a Chinese EV plant that was being built. He was the same podcast. He was talking about putting 100 or 200% tariff. John Deere looking to move down into Mexico to start manufacturing things down there where it's cheaper. He said, I'm going to put tariffs on it if it's coming back into the U.S. I mean, part of that, like, I'm kind of an anti-John Deere guy, even though we run a bunch of John Deere stuff. I mean, so good on a corporation the size of John Deere being like, no, actually, you're going to have to stay in America if you want to keep making this work, right?
What tractors do you run?
Well, we get a combination. I mean, we got Versatile, made in Canada, right? They're made right out in Winnipeg. But I mean, we had some Kubotas for a little while. Oh, yeah. Right up to the M8s of Kubotas are actually made in Winnipeg at the Versatile factory, believe it or not. And then we've got a couple of Deeres that are out there as well. Personally, I own a John Deere chore tractor, and our two combines are John Deeres. I mean, it's what we've got. And if you want to boycott,
I thought it was like you're either like all green or all red. I didn't think that people could have like a shit mix of farm equipment, but you do.
Listen, we are very inclusive on the farm here, Ryan. When it comes to farm equipment, all right, we believe in all the above approach here on the farm.
Yeah, so. you've got your Dodge Ram, your Ford F-150, and your Chevy Silverado all parked right beside each other in front of the house.
See, the thing is, if you've got them all, then you could just bitch collectively about the specific company when that one breaks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I like it. Yeah, you can use the one to pull the other out of the ditch, and then you've got a video that'll get 1 million views.
Yeah, exactly, right? But you got to be careful. If you got American-made tractors and then Canadian-made tractors, you got to have a metric and a standard socket system on the farm so you can fix both of them, right?
Very good point. These are the things that city slickers don't think about, pal. So how are you feeling today? Like I feel like the common theme when I talk to people, and I'll be honest, I feel I'm doing the same thing. People are like, who do you think's going to win the election? I'm like, it just feels too close to call. It feels like way closer than any other election in recent memory. Does your gut tell you something?
No. All I know is that no matter what goes on, you see some of the things that are happening in the States now too, where you see like scenes of people putting plywood over windows and a few other things, worried about the outcome of a federal election. Like that's kind of a scary temperature to see in a democratic country that's so close and neighbors to us, and so much of what we do here in Canada, unfortunately, kind of rolls in out of the States. But I don't think we should be at the point in a world where people are boarding up windows like it looks like they're getting ready for a hurricane because they're afraid people are going to riot depending on what the outcome of an election is. I think that gets to be scary waters to tread in a democracy. I honestly think it's going to be way too close. I mean, had Biden stayed where he was and actually tried to continue to contest for the next presidency, I think it would have been a landslide for Trump.
Oh yeah.
Harris has obviously got a good PR team behind her, and she has made some serious ground in the last little while. And I mean, when you look at both candidates' rallies that they're having, I think there's Is it strange to you guys? Like, I mean, politics in the U.S. when you see these rallies, it's like a football game.
It's wild. So there was just the in Alberta, I'm sure you know, in Red Deer just this past weekend they had the United Conservative Party's AGM, and I think they drew between 6,000 and 7,000 people. They packed Westerner Park in Red Deer, and they're claiming, and I have no reason to believe it's not true because I haven't seen anything otherwise, that it's one of the biggest political gatherings in Canadian history at like 6,500 people. And then there's like these Trump rallies. I mean, even though JD Vance said that they had 100,000 people in Madison Square Garden, we know that's not true. They still pack Madison Square Garden. Kamala Harris is packing crowd. It's like football games. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And not CFL games, like NFL games where all the seats are full.
And we can't talk about Mosaic Stadium of the Riders because they just can't seem to fill it anyways.
I don't want to take cheap shots,
Yeah, no, for sure. But like even I've talked to some people here. There's been a few people from close by here, and a couple of other people that I was on a podcast with. They're like, "Yeah, what are you doing this weekend?" They're like, "We're going down to a Trump rally in the States." And I'm like, "Why? Like why?" A few people were like, "Well, I've made a few political friends in the U.S. and I'd like to bring some of their ideas that they have down there up here." And I was like, "Please don't. Can we just stay as Canada? Can we just be Canada on our own here?" A lot of other people just want to go to see what it's all about. And you talk to people that go to these, but be it like, obviously there's most of the people that I would see that would go down to where they would go do a Republican rally for Trump. And they'd be like, you come back and they'd be like, it's just like a football game. I mean, they're tailgating out in the parking lot. You get there at 7 a.m. Nobody's going to be there till 5 p.m. And it's mind blowing to me that it's kind of what it feels like, that their politics is almost like watching WWE wrestling again. Yeah. You get that crowd that's in there and they're just like, oh, and Trump does a suplex from the top rope, and you're just like, how is this politics?
Well, and like you see, I mean, I think that Pierre Poilievre is quick-witted and has a sharp tongue and like has some kind of retorts and has kind of mastered the like axe the tax or like all these kind of things. He talked about, he was using the word wacko last year thematically, and that was kind of working. And then obviously, we talked about it last week on the show. You have Housing Minister Sean Fraser and Poilievre kind of going at it. Some people, I think it kind of raised some eyebrows
which was a good exchange.
It was a really good.
You guys said it best. I caught that episode and it's just like,
I loved it actually.
I like seeing that stuff.
I like, not everybody loved it. We got some emails from people that are like, that is the worst part of politics. I was like, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it was entertaining for a few minutes. But my point is, what we think is kind of the thrust and parry and back and forth. And then you go down to the States and I mean, it's like wild. I mean, Trump, people are dropping C-bombs and like talking about trash and like, it's so much more supercharged. I don't think Canadians are ready for it. I don't think Canadians want it. But certainly there's a ripple effect. Like, you feel what happens in the United States and it ripples, and not just here, man. Italy, the UK, elsewhere.
Absolutely, but like all eyes are on the States all the time, right? I think one of the craziest things that I've seen, like specifically with U.S. politics, is the amount of public endorsements that happen on either side of it, right? Where you get Katy Perry or
Taylor
Cardi
Swift
B or
Buzz
anybody
Aldrin.
else, Taylor Swift, and then you go on the other side of the spectrum and you've got Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and all these other guys. And I just find it really strange that like I don't go to the country music charts to see how I should vote in a Canadian election. You know what I mean? I don't go and I'd be like, actually, I'm gonna see who Corb Lund is endorsing and I'm gonna vote for them. I mean, what we should do for voting in politics is we should review the party's platform and review our local representatives' platform and how they're going to represent us best and vote according to that, not vote on what lyric Taylor Swift wrote in a song. But I mean, here we are in 2024, and that's what a lot of people do. A lot of younger people that are just not interested in pursuing what the core of politics should be, right?
Although shout out Corb Lund for his work on protecting Alberta's watershed. That's something you'll give a shit about as a producer in Saskatchewan.
Absolutely.
No kidding, right? Hey,
Corb's
Johnny,
a beauty when he does a lot of his stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, we're just shooting the shit here. We're hanging out with Quick Dick McDick. If you're just tuning in on the Mixlr live streaming audio app presented by California Closets, Johnny, in your mind, I think Quick has named probably, in my mind, the two highest profile endorsements. I would think Elon Musk for Donald Trump and Taylor Swift for Kamala Harris.
Sure, yeah.
In your mind, who carries more sway? Who carries more power? Whose endorsement is bigger when it comes to the American electorate? Who would you say?
I think they both do to their bases. I mean, Taylor Swift, but I think Taylor Swift and Elon Musk both have a certain thing about them that is, they could probably sway someone who's on the fence. If someone's on the fence and likes Elon Musk, they probably could get swayed to Trump. Definitely if someone's on the fence and loves Taylor Swift, they might do anything she says. People are absolutely crazy for her, right? But we even saw, like, Rogan came out last night, and the first time I've ever seen him endorse a Republican, he endorsed Trump. And that's the state we're in right now. And this is nothing, I'm not going to diss Rogan right now. The guy's an incredible communicator,
Smart businessman.
Amazing. Has made a cushy life for himself. But if you go back and look, because I've been listening to Rogan. I used to go see him do stand-up before everything kind of swayed to stuff I kind of didn't agree with. But again, I still think the guy's great. But his older clips, having Bernie Sanders on, saying he would never vote Republican. Literal clips of him saying, I'm all about gay rights, trans rights, human rights, and now it's a total 180. I think it speaks to just how the just temperature of the states is right now. Like, people are picking a side, and they're doing it because of maybe one or two reasons. And one of those reasons might be, I like Elon Musk, or I love Taylor Swift. I get it.
Yeah, I think.
Do you feel, Johnny, like guys do that to whip up their base, to whip up their views? I mean, this guy makes a living off
of course,
people clicking and watching and doing his thing. So I've seen it in a lot of different platforms where people pivot on their stance, and it's maybe not because it's what they believe, but it's because they know that that's what's going to get them some traction and allow them to keep doing what they're doing.
Sure, but at the same time, I wonder. I know he's not an intellectual, but he must be a smart guy to be where he is. Of course. And some of the things he's even saying with Musk, and I did the same thing Quick Dick did. I 1.5'd it last night and gave me so much anxiety watching it before bed, but I had to when I saw it came out. And a lot of the stuff, again, we're seeing a guy, Elon Musk. I know he's smart, but the things they're saying, and this has nothing to do with left or right, a lot of it is just not factual. A lot of it is fearmonger. A lot of it is saying, a lot of us, especially here in Canada, we're going to wake up on Thursday and life isn't going to change that much. Yes, there's going to be things like tariffs and stuff down the road, but I mean, a lot of these things they're saying it's just not going to happen, right? So that kind of stuff scares me. That people,
the election's been stolen before it happens, and I think that's one of the things
that's
I think
really
that's
scary.
Terrible about Trump, and I think it's one of the terrible things that floats north of the borders when this happens, and we don't have to look much farther than EB and BC here recently. Like how much election fraud got whipped up with what was happening in BC just because it's what floats over the border from the States.
Yep.
I mean, we have a very, very trustworthy and effective electoral system here in Canada. specifically in Saskatchewan. But I mean, like, I think they did a great job, and I think we needed to see more, specifically Conservatives, but every politician of every stripe in BC defending our electoral system here, because that's very important. So it's the foundation of democracy, right?
Well, and this is how you, like, I mean, obviously, I know you're spelling this out already. You don't need me to say this, but like, that's how something like an insurrection happens. It starts with convincing people that the election is stolen, that the election is invalid, that they're essentially being robbed and cheated, that the democracy that has defined their nation in the United States for 300 years basically is gone, and that that everything is fraudulent. And then all of a sudden you get folks that are quite frankly easily swayed or duped or whatever, gullible, brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, subject to misinformation, all of a sudden putting their lives on the line, putting their families on the line, winding up in jail with serious sentences because they stormed the Capitol and beat up police officers. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody doesn't go from like a normal day to storming the Capitol in half an hour. Like, it's a process.
It's like we have some of the best and some of the worst parts that exist within social media. I think that like conversations like this and lots of other things that people have the ability to do on social media now is great. But I mean, there's always that negative side to it, where people can be so negatively affected or swayed by things that happen on social media. And there's a lot of things that do just go out there completely unchecked, and away you go. And you hear somebody say, even let's say you hear Donald Trump come on and say that the election was stolen from me. Well, somebody might just be sitting around and they've heard Donald Trump say things that they've wanted to hear their entire life, and then they hear him say that, and they're like, well, you know what? If we're going to storm the Capitol, let's go storm the Capitol then.
Yep. 100%. Horse Lake Ranch is tuned in live watching on YouTube. Says the border states do the majority of their trade with Canada, which happens to be some of the swing states. I mean, Wisconsin's a great example. Says Horse Lake Ranch says, so I don't see big tariffs coming. Yeah, I mean, who knows? This means nothing. This is unscientific and unofficial, but I threw it out on Twitter. The poll is live as we speak, asking my fellow Canadians if they had a vote. It would be 4. And as of right now, coming up on about 1,200 votes. We got 22 hours left. Chime in if you like. 77% of them, QDM, we'll call it just over 3/4, says that they would vote for Kamala today. 23%, we'll call it a quarter, say that they would vote for Donald Trump. Now, of course, different people tweet this out. You're going to get different results. So take it for what it's worth. But I get the sense that a lot of Canadians, including conservatives, many of them probably feel like a Trump presidency would be more punitive to Canada, at least economically.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably not far off on that. We can't forget, though, that Trump has actually done a really good job in the past working with international relations, so global relations, in the geopolitical scheme of things. I don't think that gets underscored enough on what he actually has the ability to do. And I think there's a tough part of Trump, I think, that needs to exist in the world. I feel like it's a tiny part of what we're missing here in Canada, is that we don't, really have that tough guy that's got the hammer that's going to be like, actually, no, that's not going to be happening here. This is going to stop here. We just don't internationally or domestically just have that tough guy attitude. I don't know if Canada ever really has or not, but I just know that previous Canadian history would tell you that we've always been heavy hitters on a global stage when you start dealing with conflicts. And I think that's something that we're slowly losing in Canada here. I think that's something that Trump does very well. And I said it before earlier in the podcast here. I mean, like, Trump does what is going to be good for the States. And that's something that I promote very heavily here in Canada. I mean, we need to look at a Canada first perspective, and then reach outward after that once we've got our own doorstep swept off when it comes to, keeping Canadian oil and gas local, or whether we're going to be doing rare earth extraction and manufacturing, processing it right here in Canada. It's just everything that we can do in Canada, let's do here, then sell to the rest of the world. And that is one of the few things where I see that side of Trump, where I'm like, it's good for business and it's good for America. There's some of those things I wish we would do better here in Canada.
There's so much more value adding that we could do in Canada in oil and gas. That's for sure. We talked about that a while ago on a Real Talk Roundtable.
It's everything, Ryan. Oil and gas, agriculture, production, forestry, everything. I mean, that's what creates jobs in economies like ours. And like, when you just look at, there's some cool stuff happening just locally here, just down the road in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. We've got a couple of pea processing facilities coming in lots of people have doubled crush capacity for canola oil. Like, this is value add, and we've got grain millers that's just right down the road here, where we get oats right off of our farm, and we get bags of cereal, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So value add is where it's at, and I think we just need to do more of it, especially when we're headed towards this energy transition that the world is too. I mean, let's keep doing oil and gas cleaner and better than anybody else in the world, but like at the same time, let's do some of this solar panel manufacturing and battery manufacturing. We've got the minerals, we've got the materials here in Canada. All that's missing is for us to be able to just make the investment and keep it here in Canada and keep jobs here.
We had an amazing conversation. It was back on the 30th of August. Encourage folks to check it out. It's called The Future of Food. You can find it on our podcast archive, our YouTube archive. The future is now, basically. We were talking about the food. I mean, Quick Dick, you're talking about the energy transition, the food ag transition. Our panelists, Isha Datar and Dr. Sean Yam, argue that the food ag transition will actually be bigger and more significant. And they talk about how we're going to grow our food, how it will be shipped, how it will be sold, how it will be prepared and eaten. I mean, just fascinating stuff. And so I encourage people to check that out. That's our August 30th episode. I got the longer you talk, the more questions I have. Alberta had a renewables moratorium, in place for like 8 months or something like that. The critics of the move say that it cost Alberta, and there's evidence that suggests that it cost Alberta billions of dollars in investment and probably scared off some international investment. The government, could be personal, could be ideological. The government says, the justification for it, I talked to Minister Schultz, says, we acknowledge we have issues with our orphan wells and messes made with oil and gas, and we don't want to double do it. With wind and solar infrastructure breaking down, creating the blight on the landscape, yada, yada, yada. I think most people are familiar with it. You sound open-minded to solar. Can you see yourself as an ag producer and a landowner and an entrepreneur actually installing like a larger scale solar farm on your property? Is that something you've even considered?
Said this to you before, Ryan. The day that I can get a product to Canada solar panel, it will go directly onto the farm immediately, because solar is smart. Solar is smart in our neck of the woods. We experience some of the most sunlight that exists on the planet, especially in southern Saskatchewan. We need to do better. If anyone from the ministry is listening here in Saskatchewan, we got to do better with Sask Power, with net metering on power that we dump back into the grid versus what we take out. I realize there's ramifications with that of having the power available when everybody needs it at the same time. But I'm not anti-solar. I'm just anti-solar panels that are made using slave labor and horrendous environmental conditions halfway across the globe. And I hate the fact that our precious metals market's basically controlled by China here in Canada, and they are absolute thugs on a world stage, because they just play around with the price of precious metals whenever they'll flood the market whenever there's a startup. It's happened twice here in Saskatchewan. It's just, these are the things where it tails back to Trump. When we talk about protectionism of Canada, we need to be able to make these things happen within our economy so that we can keep them local here. I would love to see Canadian solar panels replace anything that's brought from overseas anywhere. And there's why would you not want solar panels? It's essentially free energy once you get them up and paid for, kind of thing, right? That being said, there are those times where we're going to be depending heavily on our power grid to bring power in when it's cold, or you get ice fog in for 4 or 5 days. Ryan, when it's 40 below here, we've got 12 watering bowls to keep our livestock alive, that if they don't have power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everything turns into a block of ice.
This is a dumb question. Is it heated with natural gas or electricity?
No, we do electricity on ours. There's some that exist with natural gas, but we use electricity. But we have limited natural gas infrastructure here in rural Saskatchewan.
Right.
You see a lot of guys have even got their grain dryers and everything will be on propane versus natural gas, because we just don't have the infrastructure.
Isn't it interesting? Like, wherever you live in Canada, this is not a profound statement, but we spent a lot of time out in Middle Lake, just outside Humboldt. It's where my wife's parents are. They've built a beautiful retirement place out there, and everything is like electric, and they've got like a pellet stove, and really, it's amazing how they make it work there, basically off the grid. But I'm just sitting there like this asshole from Edmonton sitting around the fire, and I'm like, why don't you just run anything on gas, And he's just looking at me like, man, you think we didn't think of that? But it's like,
well, 100%, yeah.
No idea.
My dad still heats using primarily wood. He uses wood over electric kind of thing, right? Because they don't have natural gas on their place, and it's what you see. There's a lot of places, but same thing. There's a lot of places in rural Saskatchewan here that use heating oil still to run their furnace. one of the neighbors where we're going to be bringing cattle in here from tomorrow, actually, like they still heat with home heating oil, right? It's what people have versus what they can afford to bring in, and what the difference is going to be. And we're no different than anybody else. When we start getting power outages in rural Saskatchewan, it can last for a long time.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, obviously that can be life threatening within 12 hours for a lot of people.
Lots of folks here, getting into Generac systems. As I'm not trying to company plug anybody, but there's even some pretty cool. There's some pretty cool units out there that hook onto the power takeoff on your tractor, and it's actually just a tiny little trailer. And you start up your tractor and you hook it into this thing, and you kick your PTO in, and you plug your entire farm into it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to run it on that for 2, 3, 4 days, kind of thing, until you get power back. And I mean, we haven't had it in a long time. We've got a lot of great people that work at Sask Power, some of the most professional lines people kind that exist out in the world, and they do a great job of getting us back up and running. But like I say, when it's 35 below, I mean, the cattle don't care if the power is on or not. They just care that they want to drink to survive, right?
Yeah, no kidding. By the way, we've got Mark Doran of the Polluter Pay Federation in the live chat right now, giving us the heads up. Says Corb Lund is actually speaking tonight on water issues in beautiful Nanton, Alberta. Shout out to Nanton. And then M. Aitken says that they'll be hosting Corb at tonight's event in Nanton. Small world.
That's awesome.
Hanging out with Quick Dick McDick. When we come back, I want to ask you about the Saskatchewan election results. Your take on Scott Moe's future in Saskatchewan. Kind of wins a squeaker, but wins nonetheless. And then a video, a real heater you pitched this morning. Basically, I think, to be honest, you and I see eye to eye on this, but I think the majority of the audience is going to disagree. So we'll go there. We'll talk about the death penalty with Quick Dick McDick in just a quick second. First, I wanted to tell you all, again, if you didn't catch yesterday's episode, this week we're very, very excited and proud to be announcing a new partnership with UCAN Youth Services. I have loved what this organization's been doing for a really long time, and now we can make it official that Real Talk is officially proud to partner with and support UCAN Youth Services. They're based out of the city of Edmonton, but they're helping vulnerable youth by empowering them across the province. So they have the knowledge, support, and skills to remove themselves from at-risk lifestyles. They're helping young people like 18 to 25 basically transition into employment or back into education. And their mission is to help young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. I encourage you to check them out online at ucan.ca, including their Road to Work program. I love it. Over the next number of months, we're going to be able to introduce you to some of the movers and shakers within the organization, including some of their success stories. We're going to talk to you as employers on maybe how you could integrate entry-level employees graduating from UCAN's programs. And, I mean, basically, let's just help these young people out. Give them a bright future. These are bright young people we're talking about. They just need a bit of assistance. They just need that extra little push, and UCAN's doing it at ucan.ca. Speaking of solar, if you're looking to go, I don't know, it could be go green. It could be getting off the grid. It could be finally bringing power to that cottage, that cabin that's been in the family for generations. Kubi Energy can figure it out for you. They do everything from convention centers and office towers through to agricultural operations and, of course, homes, houses upon houses upon houses. BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, you name it, Kubi does it. You can check out their projects and request a free quote online at kubienergy.ca. And I want to draw your attention to Complete Care Restoration. They deserve a ton of credit for getting many of Jasper's businesses and homes back open as soon as possible. This is a team that for more than a quarter century has been restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. If you're facing water damage, fire damage, one of those gnarly sewer backups, mold issues, look no further than Complete Care Restoration. The best part, you can choose which company does your restoration work, and they'll work directly with your insurance company to simplify the claims process for you. If disaster strikes, think of CompleteCareRestoration.ca. Hanging out with Quick Dick McDick, Canadian YouTube star and a proud agricultural producer out of the beautiful province of Saskatchewan. You can check out his merch at QuickDickMcDick.ca. We don't typically ask folks how they voted in elections. It feels a little bit rude, but if you feel free tossing it out there. There was a lot of buzz around what Carla Beck was doing, the leader of Saskatchewan's NDP, kind of seeing some momentum in the cities. And then, of course, then you got Scott Moe. I saw the billboard campaign. We were driving out there around Thanksgiving, and they were talking a lot about Saskatchewan's economy. He was basically like, don't hand this thing over. Keep us in charge. Manages to win, but loses several seats, including some cabinet ministers. What was kind of the main storyline as far as you assess it? What do you make of of how Saskatchewanians voted?
It's 53% of Saskatchewanians turned out to vote, which I think is terrible. I wish more people would vote. And I don't know what the recipe is to get people out to vote. I've tried to do a video enticing people to just go out and vote. And I made a special point of leading up to this election. I didn't have a lot of YouTube uploads in the last little while, but everything completely apolitical because it's important. Like I don't want to be that Taylor Swift or that person that's like, hey, go out and vote for the Sask party or something. You know, like my job as far as I was concerned was to get people to talk to their representatives in their constituency and try and vote for who you feel is going to serve you best in the ledge in Saskatchewan. And you know, in my riding specifically, we had 4 candidates, and here's one for you. Actually, I reached out to all 4 of them. I had one actually that I didn't need to reach out to. It was the Sask Party representative. He actually came and came right to the farm. Garage door was open on the shop. We were working on a cultivator there, and he just came right up, just drove right up, and was like,
"Well, yeah, man, because you have a bigger YouTube following than any news outlet in the province."
Of course, right? Yeah, no, 100%. But like that being said, whenever I reach out to people, I don't reach out as QuickDick. I mean, I just privately reach out as myself, and most people really don't know who I am in real life, kind of thing, which is slowly changing. But I reached out to our NDP candidate and several times. Zero response whatsoever.
Really?
I can't in good faith vote for a person that's not gonna reach back out to me. I mean, that's kind of your job. That's the job you're gunning for. And a lot of people that I talked to in rural Saskatchewan did not have candidates come to them or talk to them or phone them or do anything. There was one candidate in specific that he was going around and hitting all the false uppers. Like, that's how you get in touch with your people, is you go to where they're going to be. And yeah, it's impossible to get to 400 farms, but it's easy enough to get to one false upper to make an appearance and to be like, hey, this is the face that's on the sign, and let's talk a little bit, right? I had to dig deeper because right at the last minute, we had 2 more candidates pop into our riding, and one was with the Saskatchewan United Party. And I mean, anybody can say what they want about the Saskatchewan United Party. They have a couple of good policies, but then the rest of them are just like, I really can't have much to do with you guys. And I had to reach out to him. It was the last minute that his name was going to be added to the ballot and everything. And we had a phone conversation at least. And then we had a candidate for the Green Party actually put her name forward here in our riding. And I know her personally, and I wound up meeting with her because I was very excited that she would put her name forward to try and make a difference in the province. That's what she wanted to do. And the cool thing about the Green Party is if you're a old romantic like me when it comes to politics, and you want to vote for somebody you feel is going to take your opinion and your voice and what you want to ledge in Saskatchewan, a Green Party candidate actually might be the one to do that, because they don't vote with a party whip, right? So if you really want somebody that's going to take the best interests of your community to ledge, that might be one of your best options.
Well, man, especially
myself and the Green Party might disagree on carbon pricing and a few other things, but in the grand scheme of things. So I met with her, and I was shocked. I was like, you know what? But like, why did I have to dig in to find that you were doing this? I should see your billboards plastered all over the place, and there should be like people just jumping on board, because we got someone right from our community that's going to do it. And here's why I think it's gross, and why I think a lot of the U.S. politics that splash over north of the border is terrible. And she said she was afraid to put her name on billboards out there representing this party. She runs a small business that relies on people in the community supporting the business. And she said if they found out that I was running for the Green Party, no one would sit and listen to what my platform might be, or what I feel like, how I can serve you the best in ledge. They're just going to see the Green Party, and then they're going to just boycott me and not come into my business anymore. And to me, that was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard somebody say, that they're willing to put their name forward and try and do something to make their community better, but they're afraid of being ostracized by their community.
Yeah, I've heard those same stories time and time again of people that have sort of paid a social price for aligning themselves as a candidate in a certain party. As QDM's talking, it's kind of reminding me of Jordan Wilkie, former leader of the Alberta Greens. You remember that, Johnny? Like, so QuickDick, we had this guy on the show.
You had him on. I caught that interview. I remember
like several times, including January 6th of 2023. He was on. It was a Real Talk Roundtable. We called it The Other Guys. And like, no offense to them, but it was just like the political leaders that sort of really nobody was talking about, right? So it was Jordan Wilkie with the Greens. At that time, Barry Morishita, the leader of the Alberta Party, and then Jivan Mangat, who was the leader of the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. And like a really interesting conversation. But Johnny, remember you and I were saying, like, if every political leader or every elected official had the passion and the motivation and the conviction that Jordan had, how much better we'd all be off.
Yeah, he was a great speaker. I remember he would come out to events and I'd be like, I didn't even know about this guy for the longest time because you don't follow like the more independent parties. But when I did know about him, I started looking into all his views and everything, and I'm like, this is how I wish every leader was, even the popular and the less popular ones. But he's out of it now. What did he go back to firefighting or whatever he was doing before? So
how about this? Randy Thunderhorse, he's a solar entrepreneur in our live chat. He says what QuickDick's saying is true. He says it's the same with those of us working in the solar industry. He says I've received so many hate emails and threats to me and my business, all because I'm not working in oil and gas. That's bonkers. How about this from Chris, who says, thanks, QuickDick, for reminding Canadian voters that they vote for the person that has their riding and their community's best interests at hand. I don't know. I mean, I agree. Obviously, I think that's important. And when you're talking like municipal elections, you hope that's the case. It'll be interesting in Alberta next fall. The first election we'll have, municipal election in history, with political parties. So that's kind of interesting. Once you start talking, though, like, I don't know when people are voting for MLAs or MPs, provincially or federally, I don't know if they're honestly believing that their own riding is going to get any special attention. I feel like it's the cult of leaders, right? It's either Nenshi or Smith here, it's Beck or Moe there, it's Poilievre or Trudeau or maybe Singh federally, right? I mean, I don't know. I hate to say it, but
say maybe Singh. Come on, Jespo.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to be generous. No, but let me say this. I mean, if you look at polling right now, there's a very good chance that the Liberals will finish third. So that's what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah,
I'm not saying maybe Singh for prime minister. I'm just saying, like, you know,
well, he says it lots. I figured you could say it too. Yeah.
Hey, what did you make of him picking that fight outside Parliament, like on Parliament Hill a while back? What did you make of that,
dude? The toughest guys will always talk very tough when they've got security detail within arm's length of them. Good for him for turning back around and saying something, because, like, to be perfectly honest, I have no idea where these people come from that stand around outside of the Parliament buildings and wait for politicians to come out holding their phone 3 feet away from their face, just trying to get some kind of a soundbite that's going to get them 1 million clicks on social media. I think it's gross. And it's terrible. Like you see the demographic of people that are there doing it too, and good for Singh for turning around and doing it. Do I think he was a tough guy for doing it? Well, kind of not really, just because, I mean, what's really going to happen when you've got security detail there? And let's be honest, you're up against some guy that's kind of got a dad bod that's just there holding his phone and his flip flops. I really don't know like what's going to happen, but I mean, so be it, right? But good for him for doing it. Whether I was completely wowed about it, I mean, whatever, right?
So you didn't go buy a federal NDP membership then? That's weird. I was that was my guess, but okay. So
yeah, I don't know, but like and it's funny when you talk about federal NDP. Back to the Saskatchewan election there, I think that's something that really hurts the NDP here in the province of Saskatchewan. Is no matter how hard they try, I mean, they're just definitely 100% connected to the federal NDP party. And even on the ballot there, it was actually a New Democrat Party Saskatchewan kind of thing, right? And you're just like, well, you guys keep shooting yourselves in the foot. The craziest thing about that whole thing is like when they were talking about, I can't remember what news coverage I was watching, but they were talking about carbon tax and how Moe was probably gonna do better in the polls for the simple fact that he doesn't support the carbon tax. Well, neither does the NDP in Saskatchewan. They actually tabled the motion to remove the carbon tax from home heating oil in Saskatchewan, and then Scott Moe took that and ran with it, right? And I don't know. They ran a great campaign. It's the best campaign I've ever seen the NDP run. Their social media game was back up on top. Their live press conferences that they do were better. I think the debate itself, I think Carla Beck did better than most expected her to do. I just don't think it was that good of a debate. And you know, at the end of the day, I think all we saw here in Saskatchewan is what's happening throughout the rest of the country, Canada, and anywhere else down in the States that you look, is a very, very divided rural and urban population.
Big time.
And that's one thing we're really going to need to get figured out how to fix.
That seems like that's the case though everywhere. Like that's going to be a huge storyline as election results come in tonight, as stations are returning. And it's a story in Saskatchewan, and it's a story in BC and Alberta, and it's a story federally. And like, I don't know where it's not a story.
Yeah. And then, but like, you look at your X feed immediately following the election results in Saskatchewan, which nobody should ever do that, but do it anyways. And you just see the like people that you know that are very politically left and very politically right and very rural and very urban here. Then it just starts to, there's an absolute shit flinging competition going on between the two of them. You got rural people being like, oh, well, you know, you guys can just starve, you know, because we pay your bills. And then the people in the city are like, well, we're the ones that eat your food, so we're going to put you out of business and everything. And everybody keeps fighting each other. And just like, hell, can't everybody just get along? We can't.
No,
you know?
we can't.
But
we
like,
can't.
I don't know. We'll continue to see this. I don't know how we wind up fixing it, but I think there was a very, very strong message sent to the SAS party and to Scott Moe. And to be honest, I don't know if we'll see Scott Moe as leader of the SAS party for much longer.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, maybe he's got a couple of years type thing. I mean, I don't have the insights you would have. I don't live there. I'm not invested in it, but I feel like if you're going to transition a leader in, that conversation starting now, and maybe that was his intention all along. I don't know. Like, not everybody needs to be premier for 10 or 14 years. I think Ralph Klein, Ernest Manning, like 30 years in Alberta. But the point being, it could be Moe's time. He could know it. The writing could be on the wall already, but it's not necessarily a type of a scenario. This isn't like Jim Prentice, rest in peace, in Alberta in 2015, where like, you lose, you resign right away. That's kind of how that goes. He won the election. Like, he's the premier, right?
I think, the danger of a party like the SAS party being in power for 17 years is you gotta get that truck up on a hoist, and you got to do some maintenance to it, and you got to change out some tires, and you got to swap the exhaust around. You got to make sure that people are okay with seeing the vehicle that you're driving down the road, so to speak, And I think that's one thing the SAS party has really failed to do in the last little while. And there was a huge turnover, like you say, of cabinet ministers, but also like just for MLAs throughout the province. There was a huge turnover of MLAs in ridings. My riding was one of them. Yorkton was another one. Kenora Pelly was another one. I mean, everywhere you go, it's not the same MLA that's returning back to the party. And there's a lot of MLAs that exist out there that are going to try and make a change in the SAS party because they see the writing on the wall of what's happening too, right? So it could be some interesting times ahead to see what actually winds up happening with that party.
You get no, go ahead.
Like that party is and initially was to take down the NDP, formed by Brad Wall, bringing a whole bunch of liberals together with the PCs in Saskatchewan and being like, hey, we got to make things different, right?
Yeah.
And I think for the first few years that Wall had that, they actually wound up making some significant differences. And then all of a sudden you see everybody gets comfy, and now we see the eye's been taken off the ball in healthcare and a whole bunch of different places here in Saskatchewan. And all of a sudden we're looking at something and be like, hey, here we are back with this same stale government that we wound up trying to get rid of last time when the SAS party came here. So if they don't pivot, if they don't change, the constituents of Saskatchewan are going to change it for them. Yeah,
same story in Alberta. I mean, it's across the country, but same sort of a deal. Danielle Smith's got this 91.5% return on her leadership review. Obviously, she's going to feel emboldened by that from the people that voted for her in person in Red Deer there. But at the same time, like and there's lots of time, relatively speaking, before Albertans vote again. But what the average person cares about is like how long it's going to take their mom to get a hip replacement, or how long they had to wait in the ER when their little kid fell and broke his collarbone on the slide, like that sort of a thing. That's like the real life stuff that people care about. And, at the end of the day, that's kind of, where you expect an election to focus. Talk to me about this story. You've just released a pretty powerful video on your YouTube channel. People can find you on YouTube if they don't already. I'm sure they follow you, but at QuickDickMcDick. Talk to us. Who's Orlan Peterson? Talk to us about this story. This is brutal.
Yeah. So this is I got the alert on my phone when it initially went on, and then I have some contacts up in that neck of the woods that can kind of help me keep the finger on the pulse of what's happening, because there's been quite a string of crime going on in a lot of areas everywhere in Canada, but I mean in Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan, a few places. But just one instance where a 66-year-old guy is going to work as a carpenter, and he's on a remote location, 14 kilometers north of PA, and he's just out there just doing his thing that he does every day. And he has a couple of cars come rolling in hot onto the work site, and buddy jumps out with a shotgun and points it in his face and says, where's all your stuff? Where's your wallet? Where's your keys? And Orlan immediately he says, hey, like they're in the truck. My wallet's there, everything's there, take it, it's yours. Like, no resistance whatsoever. And then he gets butt-ended in the back of the head with a shotgun. And after they've gotten everything and they've got his pickup and they're ready to go, this guy orders him up and he takes him into a trailer and he says to him, "Hey, sorry, bro, I got to shoot you." And he pulls the trigger on his shotgun. Orlan manages to just kind of roll the one way and take the shot to his upper left shoulder, I believe it was, inches away from death. And once the coast is clear and they're gone, the guy walks a kilometer away, and a tow truck driver grabs him on the side of the road. They get an ambulance and they get him to the hospital. I just got word that he just got home here yesterday, and they're not sure how the recovery is going to go. He's got a long ways to go, whether he'll ever be able to use his left arm again. But a miracle that he's alive, to be honest.
Unbelievable. Sorry, bro, but I gotta shoot you is like one of the craziest.
Well, at least he apologized, right?
Yeah, he apologizes in advance. Unbelievable. So you're all fired up, and you take to your YouTube channel. You put together a heater, about 7 minutes. We've pulled a clip to give folks a sense of the tone. Here's Quick Dick McDick.
This is an absolute failure of government. Our justice system is a joke because there is no justice in the system. Criminals that wind up going through our justice system in Canada usually have a long string of offenses long before they ever came into it, and then they're let back out onto the streets with less than a slap on the wrist, most of the time with the officers letting them back out on the streets, phoning people around, being like, "Hey, we're letting this guy go, and he's at high risk to offend again." And not only does this put the public at risk, but this puts the men and women that are working hard in law enforcement to protect us at risk. Shelby Patton, a young Mountie in southern Saskatchewan, was killed by Alphonse Traverse, who was on warrant status at the time, and Marlene Peggy, who also had a previous criminal record. Two criminals who'd previously been through our justice system killed a Mountie. And this isn't just an isolated incident. There are multiple officers that continue to be killed in the line of duty in this country while trying to protect the public from scum that never should have been let out of prison in the first place.
That's a portion of the video released this morning by Quick Dick McDick. Talk to us about how this story, or those couple of stories that you mentioned, is resonating across the province. What are you seeing?
Well, it's everyone I talk to. One of the bigger reasons that I did this upload is everyone's tired of this happening. The Shelby Patton story is close to my heart. It's a long story there, but I mean, I wound up getting involved with some fundraising after that to do a memorial park after him. But it's the same thing everywhere we go. We had another one just locally here just a little while ago. It was another reason that why I did this video and said what I said. He was a young gentleman from, a young man right close here from Fishing Lake. And he had a string of violent history, assaults, break-and-enters, was in jail for a while, and then was set to be released. And like, I shit you not, the Mounties phoned around and phoned a girl that I went to school with who's got 3 young daughters who had been victims of robbery of this person before. They phoned her and they were like, "Just so you know, he's getting out of prison, and we're just letting everybody know who he's previously visited because you're at high risk to be reoffended again." If you're a parent that lives in rural Saskatchewan that's an hour away from your closest emergency response, and the people that apprehended a person that committed a crime against you are phoning you saying, "Hey, they're going to let him out, and there's a really good chance that he's going to come back and do it again. Let us know if it happens." At what point in time is that okay? At what point in time does this woman, her husband, and their 3 young daughters, when does their life become more important than a person that is at high risk to reoffend being turned out into public? And then what happens? Sure enough, starts a string of break-and-enters again. Now the Mounties, who are working to try and keep all these people off the streets in the first place, are back in pursuit of him. He's shooting at the Mounties several occasions where they have high-speed car chases. They can't get him apprehended. He's taking shots at the Mounties, and eventually they do wind up shooting him dead.
This is, and it's not just, first of all, let me say a couple of things. Number one, there's an added element, I think, here when you're talking about rural crime. We've talked a lot about this with, politicians in government and in opposition, with experts in policing, with mayors and reeves in cities and towns, in particular in rural communities, talking about how, in some cases, best case scenario, response time for Mounties to attend to a break-in or an active crime in progress is going to be like 45 minutes, 90 minutes, these types of things. So then you have residents taking matters into their own hands. I see Sharon in our chat. I want to, honor her comment. She says it wasn't too far away, though, that Colton Boushey was also murdered there. I see people talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls that are disappearing in rural areas with nary concern about that. I'll mention a book launched I was hosting over the weekend where that was a prominent story, and the work that the RCMP is doing there. It's heartbreaking stuff. And then Quick Dick, it's not just property crimes. It's not just violent crimes involving adults. We're talking about serial sex offenders as well. We're talking about pedophiles that are being released. I get, obviously, I don't know if you're signed up to like a lot of these news release emails, your inbox, including law enforcement agencies, RCMP, Edmonton Police. I get these emails, hey,
you probably just get flooded
heads
with
up. And I'm not blaming the cops either, by the way. They're not the ones with the gavel. They're not the ones in the courtrooms, but they're just basically like, heads up, this sick fuck's going to be released, and we have reason to believe that they will sexually assault somebody, maybe a minor, again. But like they've been prohibited from being near schools, so and I guarantee this.
Yeah, so everything's fine.
Everything's
then, right?
fine. Your kids are probably fine, because they're not supposed to be at the schools. It drives me absolutely bonkers. And listen, like, I know you have a big heart. I know you do. We've got a great friendship off camera, and I know how you feel about your fellow human beings. And I've got a big heart, and I want to believe that people can be rehabilitated. And I want to believe in second chances and all that kind of stuff. But like, there's got to be a line drawn somewhere, and it just makes zero sense, especially to people that are being re-traumatized and re-victimized.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's just. So that is the thing. Everyone's like, well, where do you draw the line? And I mean, that's a good question, but we need to get to a point where for Dallas Fulton right now, who actually has a warrant out for his arrest, they have a dangerous persons alert out for him. He's anticipated to be armed and dangerous. This guy has got a criminal record going back to violent behavior, assault against guards in penitentiaries. These are bad people. And we have a system that is turning these bad people back out onto the street. And here we are. Orlan should probably be dead, and he's not. Mm-hmm. And this is a rap sheet of somebody. Another one that I had on was Miles Sanderson that was on the video there, right? Like 59 previous convictions, at high risk to reoffend when he's reintegrated into society, and went on one of the deadliest murderous rampages that exist in Saskatchewan. 17 injured, 11 stabbed and killed.
Yeah.
And we're just supposed to stand here and be like, okay, well, maybe it'll be different next time, or maybe it'll be better next time. And then at the same point in time, we're supposed to send our children off to school. Like when I leave my dad and he's out working at his firewood pile, like I don't expect him to be rolled up on by 4 people that have been in prison previously and then let back out, and my dad to be shot just for be there working as just a retired guy in society. Mm-hmm. We need to rethink this, and we need to do better. And anyone you talk to, Ryan, in law enforcement, will share these sentiments. I mean, I can't speak for everybody that's in law enforcement, but predominantly, and I have a lot of conversations with people in law enforcement, be it peace officers, RCMP officers, city police. All of them share the same sentiment. They will be back out putting their lives at risk trying to re-apprehend somebody that they literally apprehended less than 24 hours before. Yeah, and dude, my friend, that is a broken system.
So, I mean, I think of, a personal friend of mine, Shelley Wynn, lost her husband, who she loved dearly, Constable David Wynn, who was responding to an incident outside the Apex Casino in St. Albert. I think most people know this story, but rolled up on, was investigating a stolen car, saw it in the parking lot, and it turns out that the guy that had stolen it, same deal. You describe these rap sheets that are like pages and pages and pages and pages, and this guy was out like a repeat offender, and shoots Constable Wynn dead. May he rest in peace. I'm looking at his photo right now. I just like see these eyes. I mean, this is a guy that died absolutely senselessly. And an auxiliary officer, by the way, was with him and was injured as well. Cheryl's watching in the live chat. She says rates of recidivism have very little to do with individuals, quote, doing the time. Says there are complex issues. She's right. And says, yes, she says the justice system is failing us. But Quick Dick, if shame worked, the jails would be empty, which is a fair comment. Josh says, great video, Quick Dick. I appreciate you highlighting that police are also at the brunt of the violence. Says law enforcement is only one small portion of our justice system. I noticed that the photos you showed there of the police officers that were fallen included constables Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan of the Edmonton Police Service. That was Johnny, you remember that the morning that happened. Yeah. Obviously, our show changed dramatically that morning. You just feel it like an entire community, man, a nation feels it when police officers are gunned down, them responding to a domestic violence call in a hallway of an apartment.
Absolutely.
A brutal situation.
I was trying to go through the comments on my YouTube channel this morning, and I get really pissed when I hear people as well that are the RCMP is just a leg of Trudeau and he's controlled by Trudeau and everything. I take issue with statements like that because I have the pleasure and the privilege of being able to speak to a lot of Mounties that serve here in Saskatchewan and across Canada. And they are the hardest working, bravest individuals that you will find, and they are there to protect you. And they have decided to go and dedicate their lives to making your life a safer place to be, their kids a safer place to be. And just like anyone, listen, there's going to be bad cops out there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your profession is. There's going to be people that aren't in it for the best intent. You're going to go to people that have an issue. I can't believe I'm drawing this parallel right now, but people that have an issue with farmers that are in crop insurance be like, well, every farmer's a criminal then and they abuse crop insurance. No, predominantly everyone is really good. And there are a couple of bad eggs that you can't do. It's no different with law enforcement. It's no different with anything. So just to anybody that wants to badmouth Mounties, city police, anything, I have no respect for you doing it.
In the chat, I see. Just want to get to some of these comments. Vamp Fashion says, "Can you imagine working a 12-hour shift, arresting the same 3 guys you arrested yesterday, doing all the paperwork, and then they're out on the street when you go out again in the morning? That actually literally happens." White says education is the best reducer of crime. What about properly funding public education? Things happen. What about properly funding the justice system? Social workers help reduce crime. Properly fund them. You're not wrong at all. You're 100% right. Alberta Rancher says we've had so much crime in our area that when we're out checking get this. When we're out checking cattle, we're always carrying rifles with us, and it's not just for 4-legged predators. How about that?
Right.
For a reality check.
You used to carry a 30-30, a lever action 30-30 with you because there might be predators out there, coyotes, wolves, what have you kind of thing. And we now live in a society where you're actually carrying that for protection against people that might be like humans that might be committing crime or coming to hurt you while you're just trying to live your life and do your profession, right?
Unbelievable stuff. People can watch your full video on your YouTube channel. That's Quick Dick McDick. We've kept you way longer than we asked for, but I sure appreciate you hanging out, man. Real quick in closing, how was harvest this year? How did everything go?
Like good, man. We're all alive. Nobody got hurt. Crops in the bin. Actually, I'm going to go start hauling some oats. It's my favorite joke to make. I'm hauling oats. And listening to Private Eyes while I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
There you go.
So I'm going to do that this afternoon. And it's great. Longer fall here. We got cattle still on a fall rotation. That's going to be hopefully my next upload coming to YouTube is the use of cattle in fall grazing and mitigating green stemming and agriculture and everything. So,
dude, I love
I'm always flipping it around on what I'm talking about, right?
No, I love your channel. I saw one of our, I can't remember who it was, but right when you showed up, somebody was in the chat saying, "This is the guy who taught me how to do brisket." So there you go, dude. That's pretty high praise. And we've had a lot of folks asking about your hoodie too, Whitetail Hunter. How's hunting? Have you been out already? Are you a bow guy or have you been out?
No, I'm a rifle guy. I never have the time because musket bow season, black powder bow season is always when we're trying to get farming and everything done. So, this is actually from my buddy. Shout out to Laird Whitetail Supplements, a buddy I went to school with, avid hunter, and him and his boys actually make this stuff right at their little hunting shack out in Sheeho, and it's fantastic. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, I'm gonna get some cameras out and gonna go start doing some hunting here, hopefully middle of November. But the Laugh You Bastards tour is taken again a few different places.
Yeah, hey, so where can people find out where your next comedy show is? Where's the best place for them to check that out? Your social media?
QuickDickMcDick.ca. I got them listed up to end of December at events, and when I get a spare minute, I'm going to get January, February listed out there. And yeah, some great fundraisers coming up. We just had a banger of a fundraiser in Yorkton for Habitat for Humanity. Great turnout. Everything worked out good. So yeah, if you feel like laughing along, it's always a good time.
Awesome, brother. We're showing the website right now. That's QuickDickMcDick.ca. People can pick up their true Saskatchewan bunny hugs, crew neck sweaters, long sleeve tees, you name it. Plus some cool personal grooming products, including beard oils at thebinKitchen.com. Hey, let me ask you this in closing. I got it. We were talking about wolf hunts and kind of a snaring or a trapping contest that's going on in Alberta right now. And of course, it got people talking about coyotes as well. And I got an email from Nat who says, Jespo, you and Johnny are Albertans. I didn't share this with you yet, Johnny. You and Johnny are Albertans, and it is incumbent upon you to pronounce this word correctly. Says good is coyote or coyote. He says, particularly if you're over 65 years of age. He says, and the bad one, unless you're from Wisconsin, I don't want to hear coyote. I think you let us know exactly where you stand on this.
He's 100% right. He is 100% right. I completely support him. It's coyote. I heard my grandpa used to call us coyotes when we would beat him at cards. You know what I mean? So always go with grandpa.
That is the nicest insult I've ever heard. Grandpa keeping it clean. I love that. Hey, brother, nothing but respect. You are absolutely killing it. It's been amazing to watch the rise of your platform and your YouTube channel in particular. You do it better than almost anybody else I've ever seen. People can find you again on YouTube, on X, and at QuickDickMcDick.ca. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. And make sure next time I'm in the Real Studios that Johnny's there for one of them beers, too.
Yeah,
hey,
you've never – because we stay up late, you know?
Yeah.
All right, man. Take care, buddy.
Right on.
Safe
Take
journey
care,
out there.
thanks.
Hall & Oates, Quick Dick McDick. By the way, Nat went on to say after chastising us, or let me just say correcting us on our pronunciation of coyote. I don't feel right. I got to be a coyote, I can say. He says, by the way, I do love the show. Thanks for bringing on such informative guests. Keep in mind, again, this is in the context of the trapping contest. This is just a few episodes ago. Says, as a former Saskatchewan, he says, I find it hard to strike a balance between feeling frustration with opinionated city people who have only ever experienced life in an urban setting and disappointment that my own rural people continue to turn to barbaric hunting practices when they're simply no longer necessary. He's talking about trapping. Says, I'm a meat eater and I used to hunt, so I fully support harvesting animals for food, but there's no reason to continue to trap. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. That from Nat. Thanks for the email. I appreciate that. That was kind of cool.
I like being corrected because there was a time when I was calling Kamala Harris Kamala for a while.
Sure.
And, just little subtle things, right? But my partner says coyote, and I say coyote. So maybe it's the America in me.
Pretty much anybody from Saskatchewan that I've ever met goes with the coyote, like the coyote.
Yeah.
I got a buddy from the Battlefords, the coyote. Talks about it like that. We want to get to a couple of other things. We have a great take from President and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce on what the American election outcome could mean for business owners across the country, particularly in our home province of Alberta. We'll get to that. Plus, as Justice Murray Sinclair passes, the announcement was made essentially as we were doing our show yesterday. Felt like we didn't truly do it justice, and so I want to pay proper respect there and bring you a comment that he made, the former senator who did a ton of work with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Obviously, his career spanning decades, a remarkable career. I saw somebody, one of my personal connections on Facebook yesterday, say that they figure that Murray Sinclair made more contributions to the nation than anybody else in their lifetime.
That's a big
which
loss.
is incredibly high praise. But before you go there, very briefly, I wanted to mention to you that registration is officially open for the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. It's coming up on Saturday, February 1st, and it's easy. You go to RyanJesperson.com, events link, and you click on Pond Hockey, and that'll take you to the registration. This is our partnership, our annual partnership with the Canadian Progress Club in St. Albert, and we're thrilled to be returning to that beautiful city as we raise money for 3 wonderful charities. You know, this tournament has raised almost, we're 50 grand shy, Johnny, of $1.5 million over the past 23 years, and Real Talk is so proud to be contributing to that. We have room for sponsors. We have room for volunteers. And, of course, we have room for up to 24 teams. It will sell out. It sells out every single year. You can find the details. It's $600 up to 6 players. That includes a whole bunch of goodies. And, of course, all proceeds go to charity. Join us for Johnny Infamous on the turntables. Yeah, we're going to have beers and burgers and, of course, the sound of outdoor hockey. There's nothing better.
Incredible.
As St. Albert rolls out the red carpet for the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic, that's Saturday, February 1st. California Closets is the best in the business, bar none, at getting you organized, custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. I love when the Oilers games are on and we get to see how much Stuart Skinner has loved his installation. They did such a beautiful job for him. And they can do that for you, too. You may be on a different budget than Stu. Who knows? The team at California Closets can work with any budget to install a system you're going to love that's guaranteed for life. The consultation's always free, and you can book it today at californiaclosets.ca. And a big shout out to our friends at Friesen Brothers. They've always got a lot going on. You make sure you check out their website at friesen.com. They've got that order ahead app, which is making life so much easier for folks, including those that are maybe going to be doing some holiday catering for the office, or maybe you're going to be dropping off a nice plate of goodies for a loved one. The team at Friesen Brothers can handle it for you ahead of time. Check out the order ahead app details on their website. Plus, I recommend you check out under the flyer link that Family Essentials flyer. We love it. We found great value there as a family. Friesen Brothers has always been focused on family, and that's why they present great quality food, perfect family meal solutions at everyday low prices, including recipes too. You'll find it all at Friesen.com.
Yeah, we tried that order ahead the other week. It's great because we knew the couple items we wanted.
Yeah.
Well, for stuff like fruit and veggies, you want to go and pick it up, smell it, hold it in your hand. But we wanted a couple plant-based items. We wanted a sourdough, and you can't go wrong picking any one of the sourdoughs on the shelf. And then we just went and picked it up. It was easy. Just go over to the front counter. It was great.
I remember having a very it was not heated. It was a lot of fun, but moderating a conversation, taking calls on a terrestrial radio station on people who would pick up and feel produce.
Oh, come on.
And in particular, people were talking about things like avocados are probably.
Well, you have to grab an avocado.
Yeah.
When you're talking about like green apples or whatever, I just take a look. Okay, this one doesn't have bruises or whatever, but you have to feel an avocado. A tomato, you don't want to grab a tomato and it's soft. You got to put it back and grab the one that's a little more harder as it ripens on your counter. But what's the problem? We're all washing our vegetables, right, when we get them home, and fruit, right? I hope.
I mean, well, it depends.
We're not just like taking a bite of an apple when we get home, right?
Shout out to Josh in the super chat, by the way. We see your $5. We appreciate it. Straight
Thank
to
you,
the Real
buddy.
Talk beer fridge. I would say that we definitely in our house. I mean, Carrie would probably prefer to speak for herself. I'm sure she washes everything diligently. As a matter of fact, when she gets home from doing grocery runs, I have confidence that the produce in the fridge has been properly washed and it's there ready for consumption. Mine more depends on how it's packaged.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm not washing cucumbers. I don't. Should I?
Yeah. I think the rule is if it has skin you're taking off, like an onion, you don't got to wash an onion. You're going to take off a couple layers and then cut it.
Do you follow Chef
a
Reactions?
Banana? You're not going to wash a banana. You're taking the peel off.
Do you follow Chef Reactions on Instagram? He's a chef. You got to watch. This is going to be your favorite new. This is the best recommendation.
Oh wait,
I've made.
The guy with the glasses.
The guy with the glasses.
I love that guy.
Like just the biggest prick on Instagram, but like
he's just
so
in my feed all the time.
Good. Yeah. He's so good. So he takes videos that people are putting online, particularly on Instagram, of stuff they're cooking, and then he puts it side by side and he comments on what they're making, and it's like absolutely amazing. Yeah. And every once in a while, there's a great chef and he gives them props, but mostly he just roasts these people, and it's amazing. Yeah. But I didn't realize the other day he was talking about how some folks argue.
He gives little tips as it's going.
Well, and they say you're actually not supposed to wash mushrooms. And
no,
I was like,
you're not.
Well, because they say they can absorb water and whatever.
Yeah.
He's going, you're actually supposed to use a brush to wash them. But if you think they're grown in manure, I just think it's kind of, I don't know. I can't imagine
mushrooms
not
are
washing my mushrooms.
Mushrooms are a dicey one. I've read articles that say you shouldn't even eat mushrooms, period. Like you shouldn't eat mushrooms.
Come on.
You shouldn't eat mushrooms raw. Like people wash mushrooms, cut them up, and put them on salads. Like I've seen articles that say literally that is not good for you. You should not eat mushrooms raw. And then lots of people just saying, even if you cook them, you shouldn't eat them. But I'm a big mushroom guy too.
Me too, man.
You put the mushrooms and onions in there. And,
me too.
Salt and pepper and the butter. Oh, great.
80s Fanify says, my gripe with apples is more a gripe with their husband. Okay. Says, I'll pick the best ones, and then I see my husband slap them down on the counter before paying. Oh, so 80s Fanify is getting their apples all bruised up. Yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off as well. Yeah, I'd be choked about that. M8can says washing things like strawberries won't help because they absorb the chemicals that are sprayed on them. See, this is now becoming an inconvenient truth.
I don't know, but when you say wash, that sounds like a big chore. I'm just saying, like, if I eat fruit, like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, whatever, I'm going to cut up the strawberries, take the blueberries and raspberries, put them all in a strainer and just rinse them, right? At least. I mean, everything's got some sort of chemical.
Well, Ritzy Roo says you got to wash everything, folks. There's mice. Ooh. Okay, Ritzy Roo, inconvenient truth. Okay. We talked to the president and CEO. We're, of course, recording this before we know the U.S. election results. We invite you to join us on November 6th, the morning of November 6th. We've got a great lineup. We're going to get insights for you. What does this election win, regardless of who it is? What does it mean for Canada? And also, of course, what does it mean for the world? And so we'll have guests in Canada and stateside joining us through that episode, and we encourage you to join us ahead of time. We talked just a few episodes ago with the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, Shauna Feth, and we asked her what she's keeping an eye on in the context of business implications right here in Alberta and across Canada. The U.S. election results. What are some of the top implications for Alberta depending on the outcome of this presidential election?
The pipeline projects and the energy exports, we know what happened in terms of projects in the past. The leadership changed and a deal that is signed all of a sudden goes in the garbage. Making sure that we understand that the U.S. is our top consumer of our energy. So making sure that we pay attention to those policies. Clean energy and carbon policies, I mean, that's for our country as well, something to be paying attention to. Both countries are tackling that big emissions question and looking at how do we do that but still maintain the resource sector, still maintain our businesses and the industries that support the province itself. Are there going to be additional carbon taxes coming in as a result? Are there going to be subsidies for renewables potentially? Hydrogen production incentives. So there's lots of things like that. A lot of what people are talking about, the tariffs that have been announced. That's
a huge implication of a Trump presidency that really impacted Canadian producers and Canadian businesses last go around, right? 2016 to 2020.
Absolutely.
Do you perceive that there's any difference from the American perspective on buying Canadian versus buying stuff from China? That neighborly relationship benefits us a little bit, but I'm not sure 100%.
A lot of our products and services are going across the border several times before they actually hit consumer shelves. So we really just will have to think about alternative partnerships, with US-based companies that can circumvent any of the negative impacts that could potentially have.
That was Alberta Chambers of Commerce President and CEO Shauna Feth on our October 31st episode. You can watch that full interview via our YouTube channel. That's the same episode about that controversial trapping contest that's targeting wolves. Interesting takes on that as well. I appreciated our live chat in particular, the conversations about trapping. It's not everybody agreed on that, and a lot of people are invoking, indigenous traditions. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are invoking sort of like rural survival techniques, but basically folks that are like way off the grid in remote communities over the decades or across a number of centuries, and fascinating stuff. I like shows like that really get us thinking.
That was a really great episode.
That was a good one.
And props to Shauna. I think she brought up pretty much everything every Canadian is thinking that could happen no matter which presidential nominee gets in. I mean, I think there's implications that are positive and negative whether Trump or Harris wins tonight. So it's going to be, it's so anxiety ridden. I just want to say to everyone out there right now, take a breath. Be friendly today.
Yeah,
be nice to people.
Yeah.
Even me last night watching, Elon and Rogan and then just looking at early voting and everything, I realized I had to turn my screens off because I was getting election anxiety. Not that I want one candidate or the other to win. I kind of have my opinion, but just the air right now, the things that are on social media, some of the lies that are coming out about what's going on at voting stations and just people's opinions in general. I know a lot of people are keeping their cards close to their chest. Like they don't want to say anything, especially here in Canada, until things are all done. And even then they might not say anything, but just today, just be nice to people, because a lot of people are going through real anxiety over this stuff today, and it's
Johnny. I feel like most people are experiencing anxiety over this.
Yeah, I think most people
to be honest
don't
with
feel
you,
great.
It's just what it feels like. It just or maybe not. I mean, anxiety is kind of a I guess it's a loaded word, or at least it's a word that has meaning in the context of mental health. But like, there's a lot of people that just kind of like have this. It just feels like it's, driving in our neck of the woods today, driving in today, it's like this turnover. It's that fall season. It's like it feels like winter in Vancouver.
I love this part of the year.
But it's just, it's like cloudy and kind of dark and
little
a little
cold,
bit, there's
little
like
dark,
sleet, and
not
it just
too much.
it just kind of fit the mood, It just kind
It
of fit the
actually
mood.
did, yeah.
Our live chat right now is and remember, you got to tune in live to contribute to this and to watch this. 8:30 Mountain on weekdays, 10:30 Eastern. We love having the folks in there joining us. A lot of talk about mushrooms. We've basically
I know.
The entire chat has swung over to mushrooms, and so I would be remiss if I didn't mention our conversation with mushroom entrepreneur. We talked to Dana Larsen back on October 18th. That was the morning after his mushroom dispensary, his psychedelics dispensary, was raided by Vancouver Police. Had an interesting conversation about, he says he was targeted. Kind of grinded his gears a little bit and said, Dana, like, you're running an illegal business. You can't be surprised when police raid you. And he goes, well, there's like 20 dispensaries in Vancouver, and I'm the only one getting raided. So he goes, so you can't blame me for feeling targeted. Anyway, it was a pretty interesting interview, talking a little bit about legalization in Canada. Obviously, it's just, quite frankly, not going to happen if the Conservatives form government. Could the Liberals move in that direction? It'd be interesting to see. Psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals, more and more of them are talking about psilocybin, psychedelics. We've done shows on it in past. I will say this, talk to your doctor before you do anything yourself, make a good decision. But hey, this could be the next frontier when it comes to a lot of folks' mental health treatment. So that Dana Larsen interview on the 18th of October.
Definitely, I think microdosing has helped a lot of people.
Yep.
I'm not saying there aren't prescription medications that can do just as much with more or little, I don't know, but hey, if it's up to you what you want to put in your body, and you want to put something a little more natural in there, and it's a low dose and it helps you get through the day, I mean, I'm all for stuff like that.
Yeah, and talk to your doctor. That's what our lawyers
always
want
talk to your
us
doctor.
say.
Do not take a prescription from Ryan Jespo.
How about this one from Dwayne? Dwayne, why are you torturing us? We don't have a chance. Dwayne says his aunt made homemade pierogies filled with beef and wild mushrooms. Man, I can taste those right now. That's amazing. Maybe some sautéed onions, maybe some sour cream on there. Are you kidding me, Dwayne? That sounds unbelievable.
Send some over to the studio, because we're gonna be pulling out the cots tonight.
Yeah,
we're gonna be here all evening.
We're gonna be hanging out, putting together a banger of an episode for you coming up on the 6th of November. In the meantime, as we wrap, I just wanted to recognize just a remarkable individual that passed away yesterday, the 4th of November. Justice Murray Sinclair, just an absolute towering figure in Canada's pursuit of truth and reconciliation. He was the first Indigenous judge in Manitoba, broke barriers in the judicial system, but his legacy resonates far outside courtrooms, largely due to his role as chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Under his leadership, the TRC documented the stories of thousands of Indigenous survivors of residential schools, confronting Canadians with the raw truth of the abuses and the intergenerational trauma inflicted on Indigenous peoples. And this report, with its 94 calls to action, became a roadmap for Canada's reconciliation journey. Justice Sinclair spoke with the CBC about his work with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and as you're about to hear, pulled no punches and was absolutely unapologetic in his insistence that this be a part of Canada's tradition, annual tradition moving forward.
Many people have said over the years that I've been involved in the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, why can't you just get over it and move on? And my answer has always been, why can't you always remember this? Because this is about memorializing those people who have been victims of a great wrong. Why don't you tell the United States to get over 9/11? Why don't you tell this country to get over all of the veterans who died in the Second World War instead of honoring them once a year? Why don't you tell your families to stop thinking about all of your ancestors who died? Why don't you turn down and burn down all of those headstones that you put up for all of your friends and relatives over the years. It's because it's important for us to remember. We learn from it. And until people show that they have learned from this, we will never forget. And we should never forget, even once they have learned from it, because this is a part of who we are. It's not just a part of who we are as survivors and children of survivors and relatives of survivors, but it's part of who we are as a nation. And this nation must never forget what it once did to its most vulnerable people.
Incredible stuff from the former Senator Justice Murray Sinclair, a transformative legacy in igniting a national conversation on Indigenous rights, justice, and healing. And I know that many of you feel the same way. We can see your comments there in the live chat. Sharon talking about what an honor it was to share a meal with him. Randy saying it was a privilege to know him. You can send us an email anytime if you'd like to elaborate on your thoughts on anything you're hearing here on the show. talk@ryanjesperson.com. We will gather together a few hours after election results are in the U.S. We hope you'll join us. And in the meantime, be well to one another. Talk to you soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks.